Now all the Thai people can meditate, all the locals can, English speakers, something to listen to. Okay, if everyone would like to I'd like to say a few words today and to give a few sort of general remarks, make a few general remarks about Buddhism. And I'd like to begin by comparing it with the religions that grew up in the Middle East, the family of religions. Most specifically, the Jewish religion, Christian religion, Islamic religion. Now, I think we can characterize those religions as belief systems, and indeed, they are often referred to as faiths. So, in Western countries, we talk about the Christian religion and the Christian faith, and we mean more or less the same thing. So, for most Western people, religion means belief system. If you can believe in the teachings in the Bible, you can be a Christian. If you reject the teachings of the Bible, you can't be a Christian. And similarly with the other belief system religions. Now, because most people in Western countries are accustomed to that family of religions, then they often find it quite hard to understand Buddhism. They assume that it is another kind of belief system. So one of the common questions that Buddhists can be asked by an interested Westerner is, "Oh, you're a Buddhist, what do you believe in?" I had experience this many years ago after I'd been in Thailand and finished my first 5-6 years of training. I returned to England to visit my family for the first time. And after I'd been staying at home, I went to visit one of the branch monasteries in the west of England. And there was a group of 3 or 4 monks. And we got off the train and we were walking from the train station out to the countryside where the monastery was, and it was quite late at night, and suddenly a car drove up, and all these young people jumped out of the car. For a moment, sort of a bit frightened, thought it was thugs or drug addicts or something. But it was worse than that. It was fundamentalist Christians, and they encircled us, and they said, "What do you believe in?" And if you can imagine, I've been a Buddhist monk at this time for 5 years, and to be confronted with this, someone asking me, "What do you believe in?" I found I couldn't answer. I said, "You better ask him. He's senior to me." So, it's not that I don't have beliefs. It's just that I wasn't accustomed to articulating my understanding of Buddhism in terms of beliefs. So, if Buddhism is not a belief system, then how could it be characterized? And I like to characterize it as an education system. So I propose this classification of religions that are of the family of belief systems and religions that are in the family of education systems. And I think Buddhism is the most, in my view, the most complete education system that the world has ever seen. Now, for those of you who've done some reading in Buddhist literature, you may have come across the word sikha in Pali, or training. So there are a lot of references to training. But in fact, in the Buddhist time, the word training and the word education meant the same thing. So when I say an education system, another way of talking about it would be a training system. But the teachings of the Buddha, therefore, are so different from the teachings that you find in the holy books of other religions. If you open up the books of the Buddha's discourses, you find a totally different kind of atmosphere in them, and they're so practically oriented. I'm talking in ways that some people would immediately respond to as being philosophical, other people as being psychological, and so you get these questions: Is Buddhism is it a philosophy? Is it a way of life? Is it this or is it that? But it's consider it's a religion, but it's just not a religion as a belief system. It's a different kind of religion. So if it's an education system, then what are the areas to be educated? In what spheres of education are we talking about? Now there's a word, a very important word, in one of the most important words in the whole of Buddhism is the word bhavana. Now this word is the word that is generally translated into English as meditation. I think it's somewhat unfortunate that is the most common translation, because it has given rise to this idea that Buddhism is all about meditating in a particular posture with your eyes closed and so on and so forth. Whereas the actual term itself means cultivation, or bringing and implicitly bringing things which are good and noble into existence that weren't present already, or things that were latent, and making them apparent and manifest in one's life. Now the first of these four areas of cultivation, development, education are our relationship to the material world. So there are a lot of Buddhist teachings which deal with the wise way to conduct ourselves in regards to the material world. And the material world starts off with our own physical body, how we eat, how we sleep, how we conduct the affairs of the physical body in a way that we look after the physical body without allowing ourselves to get overly attached to it, but to use it in a way as a vessel that we've borrowed from nature. The physical body is composed of the different elements, and at death they're either burnt or buried, and they return to original forms of the basic elements. So the physical body, something that's changing all the time, and something that we've borrowed to make use of. And developing wise attitudes to the physical body, learning how to take nourishment in moderation, to take foods that are good for our body without becoming obsessed with particular diets, but having an overall view of this life as a life which we are devoting to a purpose over and above sensory enjoyment. Then we have a criteria for the amount of food we eat, what kinds of food we eat, the amount of time that we spend working, the amount of time we spend relaxing, the amount of time we spend with our family, the amount of time we spend in spiritual pursuits. The whole area of keeping the body in an optimum state, a state which is just right for the practice of Dhamma. From there we go into the material world immediately around us, all those things that we call ours on the conventional level. So it refers to our wealth, our possessions, our house, our car, all the things that give us security and enjoyment on the physical level. So in Buddhism, there's no teaching that it's virtuous to be poor as such, or that it's wrong to be rich. But the Buddha did say that wealth should be gained lawfully and fairly, and that wealth that has been acquired should be used to create benefit and happiness for oneself, for one's family, for one's relatives, to help contribute to good, noble causes in the society, alleviation of poverty, for instance, and also to contribute towards the well-being of the religion that one professes. So these are all ways of referring to ways of acquiring wealth and ways of using wealth. But the most important point, perhaps, is the attitude that we have towards wealth, not allowing our possessions to possess us, and not to become overly obsessed and caught up with getting the latest and the bigger and better, and getting caught into that whole rat race, but developing a sense of contentment and the idea of using things wisely, and of not allowing the mind to become clouded and sullied by excessive and endless desires. So it's not just how we seek for wealth, but also how we use the wealth that we have attained, and developing wise attitudes to those possessions. So for lay Buddhists, we have the parameters of the 5 precepts, and saying that there's nothing wrong at all in enjoying going to a movie, going out, having fun, so on and so forth. But simply to recognize that those kinds of enjoyments and enjoyment of material wealth and possessions doesn't really answer the deepest yearnings of the human heart. It's an accompaniment. It's something which is provides pleasure in life, and there's not a Puritan teaching here saying enjoying yourself is wrong, and saying be very clear about what you really feel you need in life, and not to endlessly search for more and more material goods, thinking that someday you'll finally get to the point of fullness and satisfaction. So the Buddha says that's a very superstitious idea. It's superstitious because there's nobody that can really, I think, claim that they found complete and perfect happiness from the enjoyment of sensual pleasures. And secondly, every wise person in every religion of the world, every philosophy, has made the same point. But this is something to be looked at. So we talk about Buddhism as being the ehipassiko Dhamma, which means come and see, the come and see teaching. It means you're invited to examine the teachings critically. You are expected to put them to the test of your own experience. You are not expected, you are discouraged from taking them on faith. Certain things you have to take on faith as, let's say, working hypotheses. But your responsibility as in Buddhism is you take a teaching and the Buddha offers it to you and says the human condition is like this, isn't it? And then you have a look and you see whether that seems right for you. And as you do this more and more, your confidence in the Buddha's teachings grows and grows, because you say, yes, that's really true. I can really see that. Now the Buddhism says that because of the nature of the physical body, you can't find any physical sensation which can give you lasting pleasure, because the physical body can only be stimulated in a pleasant way for a certain number of seconds or a certain number of minutes or for a certain length of time. There's nothing in the sensual world that can give you any lasting, unchanging happiness. Even if you were to, let's say you had an unlimited source of money and you were able to buy the most beautiful work of art in the world. Let's say you go to Christie's or Sotheby's and you can buy a Picasso or a Van Gogh or whatever, most beautiful, expensive painting in the world, and you put it on the wall and you sit in front of it. How long could you enjoy it? You know, how long would it be before it just, you just feel kind of indifference? And this is an important feature of human psychology, isn't it? We get used to things, and nothing, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, is ever able to maintain the initial intensity that we experience when we first experience it. Indeed, in the case of pleasant experiences, often the intensity of the initial pleasure is more than anything else the release of tension, of craving and desire and searching for that object, rather than something which is arising from the intrinsic nature of the object itself. But this is one part of what we're studying as Buddhists. We're studying our relationship to the physical world, and then this goes out further to our relationship to the environment. And we know these days how foolish and short-sighted we are in relationship to the environment and the planet on which we live, and we know all the problems about global warming and so on and so forth that are increasing day by day. So there's a lack of this interest in and study of our relationship to the environment in which we live. This is all the first area of education as Buddhists. Second area is our relationship to the social world, to the people we live with, the people around us. Buddhism's not a teaching that tells you just to turn away from the world, close your eyes, make your mind peaceful, and that's it as a Buddhist. And if you do that and everybody else does that, sooner or later society will become more peaceful. Buddha definitely never said that. The Buddha taught the Dhamma Vinaya. The Dhamma is the teachings relating to the nature of the human body and mind and the way to develop them in the best way. And the Vinaya concerns establishing conducive conditions in the social world. So the most detailed and refined version of this is the monastic discipline for those people who want to give their whole lives to this intense practice for enlightenment. But for lay Buddhists, the same idea applies, that we should seek to create the conditions in our family home and in the communities we live in, society we live in, which is most conducive to the practice of Dhamma, which means the eradication or gradual letting go of the greed, hatred and delusion, the promotion of the virtues of kindness, generosity, compassion, patience, and so on and so forth, and the purification of the mind. Now, on a social level, I think you could say that there are a certain number of very gifted people who are able to live virtuous lives and to develop spiritually no matter what the external situation might be. There's a very small number of people. There are also a very small number of people who will act in destructive and cruel ways no matter how benign the environment in which they live might be. But the vast majority of human beings are still rather malleable and are still very much the prey of external conditions, or to put that positively, are able to be encouraged into wholesome actions and wholesome ways of living if the conditions are supportive. If you have a community, you have a sense of good friendship with people seeking to support each other and help each other, rather than to compete with each other or take advantage of each other. So this is very part of the Buddhist worldview, that giving a lot of attention to how we relate on a daily basis to other family members, workmates, people in society, but also helping in whatever way we can to contribute towards social conditions which help us to lead kind, compassionate, virtuous lives, and do not support, do not overly stimulate the defilements that we all have in the human mind. Well, these are two areas. Then the inner training, the first training is the training of virtue, and this deals with all kinds of skillful means to practically deal with things like anger, jealousy, fear, anxiety, depression, and so on. It's not something that it's not just a matter of saying you should be this way, you should not be that way, because that tends to lead to guilt and feelings of inadequacy, that you're not the sort of person that you should be. Buddhism is saying that wholesome and unwholesome dhammas in the mind arise and pass away through causes and conditions, and human beings have within them the intelligence and the resilience to be able to gradually eradicate unwholesome dhammas and to cultivate virtues by identifying the causes and conditions of each and working to let go of the causes and conditions of the unwholesome dhammas and to nurture the causes and conditions of wholesome dhammas. And one of the most powerful engines for this kind of practice is mindfulness, and developing that ability to be present in the present moment more and more. This is something that you learn in meditation practice by continually bringing the mind back to the present moment over and over again. And you're developing this kind of mindfulness muscle by which you realize when you're getting distracted much quicker, you realize when you're getting angry, when you're losing it much quicker, and you have this muscle to bring you back to the present moment, to ground yourself again, to be able to maintain this state of calmness and clarity, even when things around you are not calm or clear at all. So this is something that you develop in a very intense way, let's say, in the formal meditation, but which has to be then integrated into daily life. And you notice just how much of time in your daily life you waste. When how little of the time you're actually doing what you're doing. What are you thinking about when you take a shower in the morning? What are you thinking about when you brush your teeth? What are you thinking about when you're walking upstairs and walking downstairs? There's all these sort of gaps of time in the day where we just think it's kind of, nothing time, where we're not really doing anything, or we're going over the things that we've done in the past, or we're thinking about the things in the future, not for any real purpose or to any great for any great value, but simply because it's like, just as nature abhors a vacuum, the untrained mind abhors quiet in the mind. And so you sort of pull something in the mind just to think about it. So you're always doing things. When I get this done, then I can do something really important. And then when you're doing something really important, you say, when I've got this done, then I can do that. And you're always doing something in order to be able to do something afterwards. And so this is why there's always this sense of tension and lack of peace in the mind. Now, if you can just give that kind of respect and interest to even the small details of life, the daily chores, Even things like getting dressed, getting undressed, brushing your teeth, walking from one room to another room, and developing this ability to be present, then an amazing change can take place in your mind, and that sense of I'm missing something, there's something not quite right. What is it? You don't know what it is, but it's not this. You want something else. You don't know what it is, but it's something else. And that kind of underlying discontent and dis-ease in the mind can be radically reduced just by the effort to be present to your experience. Now, when you're present to your experience more and more, and you're not allowing the mind just to wander off, you begin to notice things. You begin to notice things arising, passing away. You begin to notice what affects you, how the body affects the mind, how the mind affects the body. All kinds of insights can arise as soon as the mind lets go of its habitual habits of thinking and imagining and remembering just for the sake of it. So there are obviously certain occasions you have to revise past experiences in order to solve problems in the present moment. You have to make plans for the future. Not at all saying you shouldn't do that, but so much of the thoughts of the past and the future are not rational, or are not there to help us lead our lives in creative and useful ways, but are simply there out of habit and pull the mind downwards rather than lift it upwards. So this is the whole area of mental training, and the last area, the wisdom training, developing this ability to look and reflect and learn from life. Learn both from the things that we like and the things that we don't like, and the things that we want and the things we don't want. Not this constant tension to control things, so we only have to deal with people we like, and we don't have to have anything to do with the people we don't like. We only have to have situations which we feel comfortable in. We don't have to meet any situations we don't feel comfortable in, and developing that interest to look at experience, to understand experience, develop this ability to reflect on impermanence, on unsatisfactoriness, and on the conditioned nature of phenomena, the non-self nature of phenomena. This is how the wisdom faculty arises. So, on the path of practice, then, Buddhism, there are rituals and there are conventionally religious activities, but these are all part of something much larger, something much more immediate and practical. It's this whole education of every aspect of our lives. So these are a few remarks I'd like to make about the Buddhist teachings today, and I think it's really enough for this morning, so I'd like to end the talk at this point.